The tour was a masterpiece of illusion. Every smile seemed rehearsed, every building freshly painted just for us. I'm Alex, and I'd always been drawn to the world's hidden corners. North Korea was the ultimate enigma, and I had to see it. Our group was shuttled from one monumental statue to another, each stop a performance for our cameras. We stayed at the Yanggakdo Hotel, a concrete giant on an island in the Taedong River, a luxurious prison designed to keep us contained. Our guides, stern but polite, repeated the rules daily. Never wander off, never speak to locals without permission, never leave the hotel alone. But the real Pyongyang, the one shrouded in shadows just beyond our curated reality, was calling to me. I had to know what was behind the curtain. That night, the city lights across the river flickered like distant, forbidden stars. My heart was pounding. This was reckless, insane, even. But the pull of the unknown was stronger than my fear. Dressed in dark clothing, I slipped past the hotel lobby, which was surprisingly quiet. I found a service exit, a heavy door that groaned open into the cold night air. I was out. The wind hit me, carrying the smell of coal smoke and something else, something ancient and unfamiliar. The bridge connecting the island to the mainland was a dark ribbon stretching into the abyss. I walked, my footsteps echoing unnervingly in the silence. The grand, illuminated monuments of the city center were behind me now. I was stepping into the real Pyongyang. The moment my feet hit the mainland, the atmosphere shifted. The wide, empty boulevards of the day were now cavernous and dark. Streetlights were sparse, casting long dancing shadows that played tricks on my eyes. I moved into a labyrinth of back alleys, narrow and unlit. The pristine facades we'd been shown gave way to crumbling concrete and darkened windows. The air grew thick with the smell of cooking damp earth and poverty. I could hear faint sounds from behind closed doors. A baby crying, a television murmuring, a snippet of a conversation that ended abruptly as I passed. Every sound made me jump. I was an intruder here, a ghost in a city that wasn't supposed to see me. I saw silhouettes of people, hunched figures hurrying through the gloom, their faces obscured by the darkness. They moved with a purpose that I lacked, never making eye contact, as if I were invisible. Or perhaps, as if they were trained not to see me. A bicycle rattled past, its rider a fleeting shadow. I pressed myself into a doorway, my breath catching in my throat. The paranoia started to creep in, a cold vine wrapping around my chest. Every darkened window felt like a pair of eyes watching me. Was that a curtain twitching? Did that person slow down as they passed? The city, which had felt empty, now felt claustrophobically full of unseen observers. I was completely, utterly alone, yet I had the suffocating feeling of being constantly watched. I tried to retrace my steps, but the maze of alleyways had disoriented me. Every corner looked the same. The Grand Hotel across the river was no longer visible. Panic began to set in, a cold, sharp-edged fear that was different from the thrill I'd felt earlier. This was real danger. I fumbled for my phone, a useless brick with no service, its screen a damning beacon in the oppressive darkness. I quickly shoved it back in my pocket. I was lost. Truly lost in the heart of the world's most secretive state. I had to get back. I started walking faster, my pace turning into a desperate, hurried shuffle. My mind raced, picturing the faces of my guides, their stern warnings now echoing like a death sentence. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Not the hurried scuffle of a local, but measured, deliberate steps. They were behind me, matching my pace. I turned a corner, and the footsteps followed. I sped up, and so did they. My heart hammered against my ribs, each beat a drum of pure terror. I risked a glance over my shoulder. Two men, tall and broad, dressed in dark, official-looking coats. They weren't rushing. They were stalking. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. I was cornered in a dead-end alley. I turned to face them, my hands raised instinctively. They didn't speak. Their faces were impassive, cold masks in the gloom. One of them gestured with his head, a silent command. My adventure was over. The real nightmare had just begun. They led me through the silent streets, a firm grip on each of my arms. It felt surreal, like a dream I couldn't wake from. We entered a nondescript building that smelled of disinfectant and stale cigarette smoke. The room they put me in was small, gray, and featureless. A single bare bulb hung from the ceiling, casting a harsh, unforgiving light. There was a metal table, 2 chairs, and nothing else. The silence was absolute, broken only by the sound of my own ragged breathing. Hours passed. Or was it minutes? Time lost all meaning. I was left alone with my fear and the endless loop of my own stupidity playing over and over in my head. Finally, the door opened. A man in a crisp uniform entered. He didn't look like the thugs who had caught me. He was older, with intelligent eyes that seemed to see right through me. He introduced himself as Inspector Kim. He spoke perfect, unaccented English. He offered me a cigarette, which I refused. He lit one for himself, the smoke curling up towards the single bare bulb. He didn't shout or threaten. His voice was calm, almost fatherly. "Alex," he began, "you have made a very serious mistake. You broke our laws. You went where you were not permitted." His tone was one of disappointment, as if I were a student who had let down his favorite teacher. This was the beginning of the game. The interrogations were relentless, but not in the way you see in movies. There was no physical violence. It was all psychological. They played good cop, bad cop. Inspector Kim would be understanding, coaxing, trying to be my friend. He'd talk about my family, my life back home, painting a picture of what I was missing. He'd ask me why I did it, what I was looking for. He'd nod sympathetically, making me feel like if I just confessed to being a spy, to having some secret mission, it would all be over. He was trying to build a narrative, a story that made sense to them. A tourist getting lost out of sheer curiosity was an alien concept. There had to be a motive. Then another interrogator would take over. He was the opposite of Kim, cold, aggressive, and accusatory. He'd slam his hand on the table, his voice rising. "Who do you work for? The CIA? South Korean intelligence? We know you are not just a tourist." He'd show me my camera, my phone, my travel journal, twisting every photo, every note into evidence of espionage. A picture of a bridge became gathering intelligence on infrastructure. A note about the empty streets became economic sabotage. They were experts at weaving a web of lies, and they were trying to trap me in it. The sleep deprivation, the isolation, the constant mental pressure, it started to wear me down. I began to question my own reality. Days bled into weeks. I was moved to a small cell. I had no contact with the outside world. No news from the embassy, no word from my family. The loneliness was a physical weight, crushing me. My only human contact was with my interrogators and a silent guard who brought my meals. The food was meager, a bowl of rice, some kimchi, a thin soup. I lost track of time. My world shrank to the 4 gray walls of my cell. I started to talk to myself just to hear a voice. I did push-ups and paced endlessly to keep from going insane. The uncertainty was the worst part. Would I ever get out? Would I spend years in a labor camp? Would I simply disappear? I would cling to memories of home, the faces of my loved ones, the taste of a hamburger, the feeling of grass under my feet. These small, simple things became my lifeline. During the interrogations, I stuck to my story, repeating it over and over like a mantra. I am a tourist. I was curious. I made a stupid mistake. I am not a spy. My voice would shake, but I held on to that truth with every fiber of my being. Sometimes I would see a flicker of doubt in Inspector Kim's eyes. Maybe, just maybe, he was starting to believe me. Or maybe that was part of the game too, to give me a sliver of hope only to snatch it away. One day, Inspector Kim came into my cell. He didn't look like an interrogator. He just looked tired. "Your government has been in contact," he said flatly. "There are negotiations." Hope, a dangerous and unfamiliar emotion, surged through me. But he quickly tempered it. "Do not get ahead of yourself. This is a complex process. Your fate is not yet decided." The weeks that followed were an agonizing crawl. The interrogations became less frequent, less intense. The silence in my cell grew louder. The waiting was a unique form of torture. I was a pawn in a diplomatic chess game I couldn't see, my life hanging in the balance. Then, one morning, everything changed. I was given new clothes and a decent meal. They took me back to the gray interrogation room, but this time Inspector Kim was smiling. It was a strange, unsettling sight. "You are a very lucky man, Alex," he said. "Our great leader, in his infinite mercy, has decided to grant you clemency. You are being expelled from our country." The relief was so overwhelming I almost collapsed. It wasn't real. It couldn't be. I was escorted to a car. As we drove through Pyongyang, I saw the same monuments, the same wide streets, but they looked different now. I saw the cracks in the facade, the darkness lurking just beneath the surface. At the airport, I was handed over to officials from my embassy. The first familiar, friendly face I'd seen in months. The flight out of North Korea was silent. I just stared out the window as the manicured landscape of Pyongyang disappeared below. The moment the plane crossed into international airspace, I broke down. Sobs racked my body, a release of all the fear, the loneliness, and the despair I had bottled up for so long. I was free, but I knew a part of me would forever remain a prisoner in that gray, windowless room. Coming home was another form of disorientation. The world was too loud, too bright, too full of choices. People asked me what it was like, and I didn't know how to answer. How do you explain that kind of fear? How do you describe the feeling of your identity being systematically dismantled? The experience left a permanent mark on my soul. I have nightmares sometimes of dark alleys and impassive faces. I have a newfound appreciation for the simple freedoms I once took for granted. The freedom to walk where I want, to speak my mind, to just be. I went to North Korea seeking an adventure, a glimpse behind the curtain. What I found was a terrifying lesson in the fragility of freedom and the profound darkness that lies in the hidden corners of our world. It's a story I'm lucky to be able to tell. Thanks for listening.